what I want to show here is the concept of publishing a document. So once the document is complete, everybody's worked on it, everybody's happy with it being finished, we want to now make it available to different people. And we do that really very simply by changing the folder that it's in. So we can check it back in, but into a different folder this time. It's that folder that has certain rules associated with it. In this case, we have to get approval before we can publish the document to make sure that it's up to a standard if it's a quality document, or maybe it just needs approval of somebody else in the organization. So what the user does, they fill out a form. They just say yes, whether it's urgent or not, what type of document it is, and then complete, and then that goes on to somebody else within the organization. So we finish with this user now. What we're going to do is log on to the user that has the rights to publish documents into that particular folder. In this case, we've called him X1. So now we're going to log on at X1 and come into our system. Here they're going to have some work in their inbox, which is where all their work is presented to them, which is now going to ask them to give the authorization. And here it is, here's the work that they have to do, and by clicking on that they will now see their own version of that electronic form. We can give them some instructions about what to do just to make sure they're clear on what their job is. So here now we can look around, we can look at the document itself. If we click on that button, we can now look through the form and see the actual document itself, and here we'll recognize the metadata, or in this case the index card associated with that document that we want to publish. So here now it's up to him to decide whether this is okay. And what we're going to do is just go through a little exercise thinking, well, he's not quite sure whether this is okay or not, but he's going to accept it, but with reservations. So he's put a note to that effect in the comments box. But now what he wants to do is just to be absolutely certain that this document is correct, he's going to ask somebody else to countersign the document. So whereas this document control, the X1 user, has the absolute publishing rights, what he wants to do now is just get a verification from somebody else. So what we're doing is we're going into our organization chart, looking at all the users and picking a particular user. In this case it's a user called C2. So we've now put him on the list of authorized people that has to sign this document off before it can be published. So yes, now he's done that, he's pressed continue, and then that form moves on to the next user. So we can now log out as user X1. And let's come back in now as a different user, user C2. This is the user that's been asked to countersign this document. So again, in their inbox, same as we saw before, there is now a piece of work for them to do. And here is at the top of the list. And by clicking on that, they are now going to see their own version of the form. So here's the form. We can see already that the user X1 has authorized it. We can see his particular comments, and they can look around, look at the document again and figure out what to do. But now they have the option to countersign it, and here's the text box. They can put in their own comments. Here they think it's okay, and yes, they are going to authorize this. So by clicking on that now, they've added their own comments to this particular form, and they're now passing it on to the next person, which goes back to the document control center, which is now user X1 again. So we can now finish as this user. We can now log off. Now let's come back in again as user X1 again. And again in their inbox we can. So here's the form in the inbox again, and when we click on that it'll open our copy of the form, which again will look slightly different because we've got the additional information, which is the information about the people who've already authorized it. So now we can look at that, we can look back at the document if required, or we can just press continue, and that now completes that particular task. Okay. So that's the job of the controller. They've said it's okay to publish, and that we can now see what's happened to that document by returning to our original user. So we'll log out here, being X1, and go back in as our original user. So here's us identifying ourselves, logging back in. And from here we'll go to the Document Management Center under this tab. So here's our documents, and now we're going to look at what we've called Demo Enhanced, which is our folder the way we're going to publish documents. And when we look in there, we can see there's our document. It's now moved into that area there, and there it is. This will have different security rights so different people can see it. By clicking on here and looking at our metadata, we now have a tab here which shows the approval and counter signatures of the authorization to publish that particular document. So effectively what this is our electronic signature. And now because this is associated with a document, we can be sure that it's been authorized correctly.